Hello Year 11, today we are going to do multiplying matrices where we are multiplying two matrices together. So last time you did adding and subtracting matrices and multiplying a matrix by a scalar. This time we are going to be doing multiplying two matrices together. Now, let's say we have two matrices A and B. When we're multiplying numbers together, 3 times 2 is exactly the same as 2 times 3. They both equal 6. That's because multiplication under the number system is commutative. However, if we have matrices A and B, A times B is not necessarily the same as B times A. Matrix multiplication depends on the order that we multiply two matrices together. And some matrices we can't even multiply together. So when can we multiply two matrices together? Told you last time that a matrix, let's say matrix A, is M by N if it has M rows and N columns. If I want to be able to multiply matrix A by matrix B in this order, then matrix B has to be an N by something matrix. It has to have N rows and P columns. Now, P and M could be the same, but they don't have to be the same. But these two must be the same. I can only multiply matrix A by a matrix that has N rows. The number of rows in the second matrix must be the same as the number of columns in the first matrix. And what will happen when I multiply those two matrices together is the n, it's not really cancelling, but think of it as the n's cancelling, and you will end up with an M by P matrix. So let's turn that into some notes. We can only multiply matrices A and B together if the number of columns in matrix A is the same as the number of rows in matrix B. So pause and copy that down, please. Then, if matrix A is an M by N matrix, and matrix B is an N by P matrix, AB will give an M by P matrix. We cannot do BA so we cannot multiply them together in the order BA unless P equals M. So again, pause please and copy that down. So let's say I had three different matrices. I've got matrix A, which is a 3 by 2 matrix, matrix B, which is a 2 by 5 matrix, and matrix C, which is a 2 by 3 matrix. Can I do the following? AB, BA, AC, CA, BC, and CB. So if I want to do AB, I've got a 3 by 2 matrix multiplied by a 2 by 5 matrix. Yes, I can do that because the number of columns in this matrix is the same as the number of rows in this matrix, and it will give me a 3 by 5 matrix. That means the matrix that I get here from multiplying these two together will have 3 rows and 5 columns. What about B times A? The number of columns in matrix B is 5. The number of rows in matrix A is 3. These numbers do not match, so I cannot multiply them in that order. A times C. The number of columns in A is 2. The number of rows in C is 2. So yes, I can do that, and I'll be left with a 3 by 3 matrix. C times A. C is a 2 by 3 matrix. A is a 3 by 2 matrix. These two match, and I'll be left with a 2 by 2 matrix. B times C. These two numbers do not match, so I cannot do it. C times B. These two numbers do not match, so I cannot do it. So I can only multiply two matrices together in order if the number of columns in the first matrix is the same as the number of rows in the second matrix. And you'll see here, I can do AB, I cannot do BA. I can do AC and CA because if you look at the number of rows and columns in each one, they're the reverse of each other. So I can multiply those two together in any order. Right, I'm going to show you a generic matrix multiplication, and then I'm going to do a specific example. So let's take a 2 by 3 matrix. Yeah. And a 3 by 2 matrix. Now, I'm going to multiply these two together, but first I'm going to think about what kind of matrix that will give me. So this is a 2 by 3 matrix. This is a 3 rows by 2 columns matrix. So what sort of matrix am I going to end up with? I'm going to end up with a 2 by 2 matrix. So that's what I'm aiming for when I multiply these together. If I now multiply these together, I'm going to try to show you using the colours how this will work. You multiply in order the first row by the first column. So this is the first row and the first column of this new matrix. To get the first row, first column entry, we multiply the first row, first column. So I'm going to do A times U plus B times V plus C times W. So I've multiplied the first row by the first column, and that gives me the entry in the first row and first column of the new matrix. For this entry here, this is the first row and the second column, so I'm going to multiply the first row by the second column. So I'm going to do A times X plus B times Y plus C times Z. So that's in the first row and the second column, I've multiplied the first row by the second column. Second row, first column. So I'm going to multiply the second row by the first column. So I have D times U plus E times V plus F times W. So I've got the second row, first column. I've multiplied the second row by the first column. Last one, second row, second column. I'm going to multiply the second row by the second column. So I've got D times X plus E times Y plus F times Z. So that is how you multiply two matrices together. And I've ended up with a 2 by 2 matrix. There are 2 entries in the first row, there are 2 entries in the second row, so there are 2 rows and there are 2 columns. Whichever row and column you're trying to work out, you multiply the corresponding terms in the rows and columns of the 2 matrices that you're multiplying together. So if I'm multiplying these 2 together and I want to find the entry here, this is in the second row, second column, so I multiply the second row by the second column, adding each term. I'm going to do an example now with some numbers. So I've got these 2 matrices, A and B. A is a 3 by 2 matrix. B is a 2 by 2 matrix. And what the question wants me to do is find C, which comes from multiplying A, B together. First, I'm going to check that I can actually do that. A is the first matrix in the multiplication, so I'm interested in the number of columns it has. B is the second matrix, so I'm interested in the number of rows it has. They match, so I can multiply them together, and I'm going to get a 3 by 2 matrix. So when I've finished multiplying, I can check if it makes sense by checking if I end up with a 3 by 2 matrix. So now if I want to do this multiplication, I'm going to write the 2 matrices next to each other, hopefully giving myself enough room for this. So first row, first column. I'm doing first row multiplied by first column. So I'm going to do 2 times 2 plus 3 times 5. First row, second column. I'm going to do the first row times the second column. Next one, second row now, but first column. So second row, first column. Naught times 2 plus 1 times 5. I'm in the second row, second column, so I multiply the second row by the second column. So I do naught times 3 plus 1 times negative 1. Then I'm in the third row, first column, so I'm going to do 4 times 2 plus 5 times 5. And then finally, third row, second column, I'm going to do 4 times 3 plus 5 times negative 1. And let's just double check. I've ended up with a 3 by 2 matrix. I've got 3 rows and 2 columns. So yes, I have. The final step now would be working out each of these numbers. So working out each of those numbers. I have got 2 times 2 plus 3 times 5. So that is going to be 19. 2 times 3 plus 3 times negative 1. That's going to be 3. 0 times 2 plus 1 times 5. 0 times 3 plus 1 times negative 1. 4 times 2 plus 5 times 5. And 4 times 3 plus 5 times negative 1. So that is the resulting matrix. That is matrix C, which comes from multiplying matrix A and B together. Can I do B times A? B is a 2 by 2 matrix. A is a 3 by 2 matrix. These numbers do not match, so I cannot do B times A. So this is the resultant matrix. Please make sure you've got that example copied down. I hope that has made sense. I'm not going to do any more examples. There are a lot of questions for you to have a go at. If you get stuck on any question at all, tell me and I will record a video for that question. The only other thing you need to know is that you might come across a question where it asks you about the matrix I and it doesn't tell you what matrix that is. The matrix I is the identity matrix. It is always a square matrix. If it's a 2 by 2 matrix, it will look like this. If it's a 3 by 3 matrix, it will look like this. It's the matrix that has 1s in its diagonal and the rest of the entries are 0. So matrix multiplication, it does sometimes take a little while to get used to. If you struggle with any question, comment on Show My Homework and I'll do you a video. Remember to submit some of your work on Show My Homework as well, please. Thank you.